Welcome to the Authority X Factor podcast. I'm your host, Kelly Schuknecht, and today's guest is someone who defines what it means to move from the invisible strategist to an influential industry leader. For over 20 years, Ben Kalkman has been the secret weapon for home service businesses across the country. As the founder and CEO of Rocket Media, Ben built an agency on a simple but radical vision that small family style teams yield the strongest results. While his LinkedIn bio modestly describes him as a graphic designer and internet extraordinaire, Ben has spent 2 decades quietly building a multi-million-dollar marketing engine with an incredible client retention rate. Today, we're going to peel back the curtain on his 20-year journey, find out how he turned a founding vision into a category-leading brand, and uncover exactly what makes up his unique authority X factor. Thank you so much for joining us for this show. I want to start out by backing up for a second and explaining the authority X factor. So I have a book called Unlocking Your Authority X Factor. And the way that I define authority X factor is the unique intersection of your career path, lived experience, and specific skills that make you the go-to person for a particular problem. It's the foundation of a personal brand that moves you from being an invisible behind the scenes expert to an influential thought leader. So, welcome, Ben. With that
Hello.
intro, I want to start out by asking you, what is your authority X factor?
I would have to say, and this is a fun question because there's so many things when you think about the mix of that. I have the unique ability to take complex situations, conversations, topics, and unpack them in a way that I can explain it in simple terms to people. So I think that's one of my cool traits that I have. If I was to brag on myself, I might mention that. Don't get me into mathematical things. I'm not in that kind of guy, but I find definitely with the spaces that we serve, the home services space, for example, those can be scary. They can be very costly. They can be confusing. And that's the industry that we've been able to focus on. So we've been able to make those complex things really easy to understand and help our customers then, of course, attract the right people. So storytelling is part of that too, right?
I love that. So, one of the things, you and I met, well, we met previously, but we were together just last week at
Yeah,
an event with the Bureau of Digital.
that's right.
And, when I was kind of thinking about you as a guest on this podcast, I was thinking about how, in my book, I talk about teaching or talking to your day one you. So like when I go out and talk, I'm teaching people kind of on my journey of like how I went from what I call being the person behind the person to putting myself in the spotlight, becoming a business owner. And I was thinking about you, your day one you isn't, let me say it this way. You didn't start out in the home services business yourself, right? You started out as a marketer,
Yeah,
as a
yeah.
graphic designer. So tell me a little bit about that journey and how you became kind of specialized in the home services business.
So all stories have sometimes a story arc to them, and this is going to be one of those where it's
Yeah.
sort of serendipitous. I, from seventh grade on of my education, knew that I wanted to be an architect. And so I went to college to be an architect. And as luck would have it, things changed in that path toward the latter part of that. And I found graphic design, and that's what I ended up becoming. Now, when you go into home services, it's very, very focused on what architectural industries would be producing, right? Like the plans, the architect. So I didn't ever notice that until later in life. And then the fact that when I was starting my business, as most homegrown starting businesses, it's not easy when you're bootstrapping it yourself, right? So I found myself working for a handyman in the morning. So I'd get up real early, drive to the location, do handyman work all day long, come home and then do Rocket Media by night. And I did that for a couple of years because we had to keep the lights on, right? We were trying to build this little bitty business, and you have to kind of do what you have to do. I have a young family at that point that we're trying to support, and so it's everything we could do to keep things going. And as you look now at what I do and the trades that we serve, like weirdly enough, my architecture background and all the handyman work that I did for all those years before I actually became full time Rocket Media kind of gel. And so I would have never thought that, but that's how it came to be. And so, I will tell you, I fought this too, by the way, because as a young designer in any kind of space like this, you want to be, it's a little egocentric, I guess, but you want to be able to say things like, oh, who do you work for? And you want to name brands that people recognize. I
Right.
do work for Nike. I do work for this or that, right? Brands that people kind of know and buy and love. I fought that because I'm working for local home service shops that most people probably never even heard of, or nor do they ever want to work with because nobody wants to buy those things unless they have to, right? And so I fought that ego bit because I was like, well, I just want to get some brands that I can put around my brand, my company name, and be able to have a bigger name that's associated with those brands. So after a while, I finally came to grips with that and realized, you know what though, these companies that I'm serving make a big impact on people's lives. And as time would tell, in the story of our journeys over life, you look back on history, and we've had several instances in economics and in social and economics where we've had things like economic turn, where these organizations are very recession resilient. Or let's talk about COVID for a minute. Well, these were essential services. So through dumb luck and the grace of God, I was in these spaces where I had not had to feel that as an agency, where many of my peers would have a lot of more challenging times because of those situations, right? So again, very serendipitous that that beginning Ben evolved into this home service marketing contractor Ben that's supporting these agents, these locations. And who would have known I would have had all this built into me, you know? Um, so that's kind of the story.
Yeah. Well, so you did have a little bit of that experience in the industry where you were a part of it, right? Like, so you kind of understood that world more than maybe like if I were to go into that, like to try to specialize in home
Yeah,
services, like I'm not gonna have
for
that
sure.
kind of
Yeah.
yeah. Um,
Hmm.
well, so that's interesting. So you kind of studied one thing, but then went in a different direction with
Yeah,
your
now, so shamelessly, I'll admit that, as a average college student in that prime age, I forgot to sign up for the lab class that I needed for that architecture class, so I had to wait a semester. And because of that 1 month or one semester waiting, that's how I got introduced to graphic design. And who knew
wow,
that's where I'd go.
right.
And I'm also reflecting a bit now too, thinking about like my parents are both school teachers. And so the summers usually most school teachers do other things in the summertime, right? And so my father would always do some type of construction work. And one summer, I remember he and I and my other brother went into the deck building business, and so we built decks together. So we did that. So again, I think about all these things that kind of come to play of like these handyman trades-ish type things that kind of were impactful and influential in my life. And I think now as I look at that, I can relate to my customers in a better way, maybe that I didn't realize was happening in long term. So that adds to the fire.
Yeah, yeah. Tell me a little bit about, the services you provide. So we talked about kind of the graphic design, internet extraordinaire, and the home services business, but tell me about how you actually serve those businesses.
Yeah. So again, dating myself, when I started, it was mostly graphic design services to begin with, right? The internet was not really what the internet is today. So we did a lot of print design and a lot of print work. This was the back in the yellow page days, right? So the AAA double truck game that we all played in those spaces was important. So we built a lot of those things. Very unforgiving too, by the way, because you make an error in one of those print ads and they get published. Woof, that could be expensive. So anyway, that's how it started. But as the internet grew, I love technology. It's one of my passions. And so some people are like car guys. Some people are like, whatever, whatever. I'm a tech guy. So I'm always going to have the latest and greatest tech because I'm just so interested in that. Right.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of think also why I got so involved with the internet worlds. Google was just coming around the corner as well at that point for what it is today. And so we got heavily involved in the Google ad marketing space. And we've been Google Premier partners from day one, really, since that started. And so we've been able to have great partnerships with those type of relationships, which also catapults you because as you're into those kind of networks, right? When we would say go out to Cupertino for regular visits with them on strategy meetings and things like that, we would be entrenched with all these new ideas and all these new technologies that they are providing. So that got us a little bit more into that space as well from a technology perspective. Today, Rocket Media, I always suggest that we're a full service marketing agency and that we really kind of help in all aspects. So we do build a lot of websites because that's again the creative side. The
Yeah.
creative Ben doesn't do any of these things anymore, but I have the eye, so I can help guide my team and help with customers. I do a lot of the strategy and kind of consultation work now. But then we have a full service support team that does from SEO, content, paid search advertising, media development, content creation, all the things that we would need from a tactical perspective to support the strategies that we help with our customers. the fun thing about this industry is we don't like to call ourselves a lead gen company, but that's in essence what we produce for our customers, our leads to the volume that they need to support their capacity. And so we look at that and we're able to produce results in that way. And that's the other beautiful thing about digital marketing and advertising. It's very analytical, right? So attribution tracking is our friend, and we like that kind of stuff. And it helps us to tell a wonderful story. It helps support us in whether we're doing well or not well, and then we can pivot accordingly. So that's the name of the game that we are in today, and it just really creates a powerful solution for customers today, even though it's evolving as we speak today. It's changing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny that you say that, that with digital marketing being that analytical. Your path to it was the creative side.
Mhm.
I am not a creative person. Like I'm not a designer. I am not I'm never was a graphic designer, a brand person, anything like that. But I came into marketing accidentally because of the analytical side of it. Like
Mm.
I was the person who could look at the numbers and go, "Oh, here's what we need to be focused on," right? And
Yeah, right.
and so I accidentally came into this world because of that strength that I had, and I think I have a creative side. It's just not in that design kind of work. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
interesting the paths that kind of bring you to where you're
Yeah.
supposed to be.
And my perspective on design has evolved too, because I used to think design was very visual, right? Everything was designed from visual perspective, visual lens. But as you kind of learn and grow as an operator in businesses like this, you learn to appreciate the design of all things that happen, whether that be through how we communicate, that's specifically designed, or the way we architect our code, right? That's also typically very well designed. Even down to how we present ourselves, that's also designed. So I think design in all ways now, not just the visual, although I'm very keen on the design visual side of things still. To me, it's always about the attention to the details. And so I think that's one of the differentiators that I would always look at in how we present ourselves is those small things that most people probably wouldn't notice, but that actually impact the overall story.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know many people, I don't know how many competitors you have in the space, right? Like I don't know of many marketing agencies that are specifically working with home services type businesses. Um, and but I imagine there's others out there, right? So what differentiates you? Like what is the thing that makes Rocket Media and you as kind of the face of the company stand out when it comes to uh, basically selling your services to those kinds of
For
companies?
sure. Yeah. So when I started, you're right. There was really anybody. I think I was probably one of the first pioneers in this space. Again, going from the yellow page era to more of a digital era. This
Hmm.
particular industry, home services in general, was very lackluster in their adoption of design. So their sites were very scientific, is a good way to put it. You're right. And so they were very archaic, and let's put it that way. And there was not a lot of love and a lot of storytelling and a lot of conversion consideration. And so my first client was a home service company. It was called Parker and Sons, and that particular owner, Paul Kelly, is his name. He and I hit it off, and we were able to build things for his business in that space. And I learned a lot from Paul. Paul, I would consider as one of my mentors in this space, and still can connect with him, even though he's sort of retired now and often do greater, bigger things. But Paul and I then in 2005, along with another woman, created one of the first directory companies that ever existed. This is kind of before, if you think like Angie's List or Service Magic or all those kind of things that you know of today. Well, this was called To Fix It. And the whole premise there was, if you needed a referral for something done to your house, likely you would ask your neighbor across the fence kind of thing, right? We're thinking like Tim Allen and that TV show, right?
Yeah.
Uh, right. So To Fix It was kind of that model. And so what we did is curated a list of home service providers for all the different categories for your home. And there's about 100 and so of those categories if you think about it. So that's how we started To Fix It. And as we rolled that out, Paul used his connections in the home services space and his connections to different markets. And so we went from Phoenix to Atlanta to San Diego and kind of grew this brand To Fix It. And it evolved. And everywhere we went, Rocket Media, I was the marketing arm behind To Fix It. We built the brand, we did all the marketing, the website, the digital advertising. So all these companies that would join To Fix It would say, "Hey Ben, can you help us?" And it was a great way to make connections. Now, this was all things home service, right? I just mentioned there's like over 100 different categories.
Hmm.
And so we were supporting a lot of different trades. And it became a little bit overwhelming because what we found ourselves doing is, yes, in general, it's the same type of customer, but the knowledge of all these different trades was lackluster also. So we've decided at one point to focus. And we ended up going into just 5 core trades. And that would be HVAC, plumbing, electrical, solar, and security. Those are the 5 that we focus on. And I always tell people those are the 5 where 80% those 5 and 20% things that make sense. Because this guy will find things now and then, like the local chamber of commerce or other things that I want to support locally or nationally that we think would be a good partnership. But in general, all of our marketing, all of our positioning is focused just on those 5 trades, the home services trades. And so again, kind of dumb luck, kind of fell into that space, and that's how we've got our positioning.
Now you
Yeah.
say dumb luck, and you've said it a couple times, right?
Yeah.
And is it luck or is it, being thinking about opportunity and leaning into the opportunity that presents itself? It's you could see it
I
one way or the other, right? But
I know you could, yeah, and I look at it now, and that's why I call it dumb luck because all those decisions that I made, I didn't realize I was making in that
right,
that
right,
path, right? You look back on it now, and you're like, "Wow, I really was lucky in how this kinda came to be."
yeah,
And I still am in that regard. So maybe, there's a higher power that was guiding me in that process. I'm gonna assume, but I've been benefiting from that for a while, so that's great.
yeah, yeah. Well, you mentioned okay, so the 5 areas that you specifically focus on. Um, one of the things that I saw on your website, that, you have a good, kind of, story around is the client retention rate
Mm,
that you have,
mhm.
that people who work with you stay with you for a long time, right?
Yeah.
And I imagine some of it, that kind of 5 core areas. What, so how did you start communicating that proof of your expertise so that you weren't just a vendor to these companies, but a recognized thought leader in their industry? So you kind of took this opportunity, call it, dumb luck or
Yeah.
whatever, right? Smart decisions in your path there. But how did you start becoming known as the thought leader within those 5 kind of service areas that you work with?
Yeah. Okay. So again, opportunity has a lot to do with these type of situations. So the two fix it story I was telling about really brought me into the forefront of that space because as Paul Kelly and Chris Garvey was the other woman's name, and myself would go to these different markets. What we would be doing often is pitching the concept of to fix it, and so we would be up in front presenting the model to these contractors that are looking to become part of that to fix it model. And so by doing so, I was always responsible for talking about the marketing and the internet side of things. And so I would be able to share that information. Mentioned my parents are both school teachers, and I think that kind of inherited knowledge delivery kind of mechanism that a teacher has is kind of instilled in me. I believe that knowledge is probably the easiest and most impactful way to sell anything. If I educate you on something so you understand how it works and why it works and what it does for you, that gives you confidence in maybe the solution, and then you can determine whether you want to do that or hire me to do that for you, right? And so that's always been my approach and how I look at this. You asked earlier, and I don't know that I quite answered the differentiation for Rocket. And the reality is this: you can take many different paths when you build a business. You can become an empire where you have thousands and customers and hundreds of employees and this really large, massive production. Early on in my years before I started Rocket, I worked for a large corporation that had hundreds and thousands of employees. And I was one of them. And I didn't necessarily enjoy that model because I was stifled in my development and my ability to communicate in those spaces, right? Not that it was a bad company in any way, but it was a great company actually. But I noticed that it was run a little bit like you would think the military is run, like very chain of command kind
Yeah,
of mentality. And you have to do that in a large corporation because you have to keep order.
right.
You have to keep everybody kind of rowing in the same direction. And I get it. I understand it. But I understood that it wasn't for me.
Yeah,
So when I started Rocket Media, I told myself, and I did some studying on different types of cultures within the business world and the different levels that you have. Um, One of my friends, Clayton Mask from Infusionsoft, he kind of wrote a whole model on this that I've always believed would be true. Anyway, it's about 20, I don't know, there's different stages in this growth, right? So you go from a solo entrepreneur to having employees and then da, 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 da. So it's around 48 is the magic number. So I said 50 is when you get to the point where after 50, you stop remembering or being able to know everything about everybody in your company. There's
yeah.
this tipping point where suddenly it's more than you can keep up with, right? And the layers of your corporation or your company have to kind of expand at that point. So I just made that decision that I was never going to get larger than 50 employees. which also meant that my capacity for work would be only based on that. Now, I've never been at 50. The most I've ever had, I think, was almost 40 employees at one time. We're at 23 right now. And so we've kind of been in that phase of that circle. When we purchased our building and we got to remodel it, and this little bitty architectural muscle that I pretend like I have came out, and I got to design this space just for my agency. I designed it to guess how many people? 50, right?
50. Yeah.
So it would hold me true to my word. I'm saying this all to say that when you think about how Rocket's differentiation comes to be, it's this. None of our account members have any more than 12 to 15 accounts at any given time. Most of my competitors have anywhere between 50 and 100 clients at any given time. So if you're a client, you can probably suspect that you're probably getting the squeaky wheel gets the oil kind of attention. Not to say that that's a bad thing, but some clients demand and deserve a much better experience where people know their names, they know everything about them, they're allowed because they've got the time to do what they need to do. Now, if I was trying to make a hugely profitable machine, which we're all in business to make money and make profit, right? I would probably look at the larger scale model that some of my competitors have chosen. But I wanted a more intimate business. And so intentionally, that's how I built it. So when I tell people the story of Rocket Media and explain to them what makes us different, it's that you're not just a number to us.
Yeah.
We actually know your name. We actually know what's going on in your world. We're involved. And that has proven to be true for the accounts that we work with, right? So that's when you say, how do you keep accounts for 10, 12 years, which is what we currently have? Our average tenure is about 12 years. Um, that's how, people want to work with people they know. Even in the age of AI that we're in today, human connection, like we're talking right now, is super important. And it makes a huge impact on our lives and how we work and what we do, because we all have that intrinsic need for each other.
Yeah.
The work can get done in different ways, but we're always going to need each other in that regard. That's just human nature as a whole. I think that's what differentiates us. A lot of people can do the work that we do, but they can't do it to the quality that we do in the sense that we have these relationships that understand and are empathetic for our customers. So there you go.
Yeah. Yeah. You actually led right into my next question, which was, you are a big AI guy.
Mm.
I learned a lot about AI from you last week.
Okay.
But I really do believe that it's that human connection and authenticity that's really going to be important in these next few years as AI grows. AI can replace so much of what we're doing, right? So it can write our blog posts, it can write our social media posts, right? Um,
Yeah.
but it can't replace us as people. And I think what people really people want to you said it people want to work with people they know, right? And they
Yeah.
also want to work with people that they connect with in some way. So my question for you is, when it comes to your personal brand, the personal brand that you have kind of created, whether it was on purpose or it just kind of happened over the last 20 years or so, um what is it that people connect with you as a human, not just the work you do, but there's reasons that people connect with us. So, what are some of the things that you've put out there that you have connected with people around and built relationships around that have led to business?
Yeah. So what comes to mind right away is my personal purpose statement. This was an exercise one of my business coaches helped me work on not so long ago. And really, what we were trying to do is you come up with a statement that represents who you are as a person, right? And so as we did that exercise, there was a lot of different workshops and things I would do to kind of come to that. But what it resolved to is that I'm really based on, I've decided, four walls. And those four walls are God, for one, my family, my businesses, and me. So if you put Ben in the middle of these four walls, I'm always looking at myself every day of how do I support these four walls? So I have to consider myself and think, am I giving enough time to each of these four walls so that they don't fall down? Because often
Mm.
what happens is life happens. And so, you'll spend more time in one area and not enough in the other. And so if you reflect and consciously think about that and whatever your walls are that you're made up of, and you look at your time that you're spending, if you're spending enough time to support all four walls, I think you have a more holistic person of what you want to be. Those are what I selected my four walls to be. And so I spend time in all four of those areas and try to every single day. When I map out my calendar, I'm looking at that saying, where am I? I'll be honest, my family tends to get the short end of the stick more often than not. That wall falls down a lot and I have to pick it back up. And, because I'm so invested in my business and my other things, the other one that falls down a lot is me, my me time, right? I don't do enough for myself, like just, whether that be meditation, whether that be exercising, whether that be eating right, or just, reflection time, right? And I think a lot of us are like that. So, that's one way I think about my personal brand. But I would say if you were to describe it, I would probably be seen as an educator, energetic educator. And I say that because I love to share. I love to educate and share what I know. And so lately, with you mentioned AI, that's become a thing where sometimes in life you find things that you're just so passionate about that it just excites you and you just go down this rabbit hole so fast. And that's been me in this particular model of
Yeah.
technology. It was like that with me with a lot of things in my life where I kind of just like absorb myself into this architecture when I was telling you about younger. It's all I talked about, all I looked at for so many years. And it's been different things throughout. Right now, it is in fact AI technologies. And so when you become passionate about something, people can feel that in you. Like when I'm talking about AI, I think people can just feel the energy from me about it because I'm excited about it and I'm sharing my passion with that, and that excites other people. It ignites different things in their mind as they listen to me talk about these things. And so I love that, and I love to share what I know because then it helps me not only for my own consciousness understand and make sure I know what I'm talking about more, but it also helps me share that so that I can have better conversations with others. Um, I've been around the block a while in this marketing world, and I think there's too much of the secret sauce, confidentiality and things that are out there. Like, oh, I can't tell you about this thing because it's my
Yeah.
secret sauce.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know that there's too many of those things out there. Maybe if you've got some recipe for a particular food item or something like that, maybe that is technically the secret sauce. For me, my secret sauce is my team. I will tell you that up and down. I've got an amazing team, and I would not be here today and talking with you if I had not had a great team throughout all these years.
Yeah.
And so, ironically, my very first employee from way back when is still with me today. And so that says a lot, that we've got a culture here that fosters long-term relationships, not only with our customers, but we walk the walk here too, right? So there's a lot of that going on. So I think I answered your question about the personal brand, but it is definitely that.
I will say the energetic educator, I can attest to that because, having been with you talking through the
Yeah,
AI stuff, like you definitely show that excitement for it and also just, willingness to share everything and, openness to help other people. And as a thought leader, that may not be your area of thought leadership necessarily. I mean, it clearly is, but not necessarily why you were going into like learning about AI. Um, but that sharing that information is how you become a thought leader. People don't want to
agreed.
give away the recipe, right? But really the more you share, the more of what you've experienced and what you know that you share with people, the more people gravitate to you because they're like, that's the person who knows the thing that I need, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so it's not about them stealing what you do. I'm actually part of, this book and this course that I'm launching are all about teaching people how to do exactly what we do because I want people to learn these things. And then also, if they don't want to do it themselves, they can always come to us and hire us, right? But like really
right.
the point is to help people and to educate people around the things that we are uniquely positioned to be able to do, right?
100% agree with that. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, for
Well,
sure.
Ben, as we wrap up, I want to ask you one last question, which is if you could go back to day one, Ben, so the year
Mhm.
you started your company, which was what, 2000,
2002. Yeah.
2002, okay. What is something that you would tell yourself now or tell the now version of Ben would tell the day one version of Ben that would have helped you in your journey?
Yeah, so, number one thing that comes to mind right away is trust my gut. Usually, so I don't know if you know the disc profile measurement system that's out there, right? It's one of the
Yeah.
many that's out there.
What
So
are
I'm
you?
categorized as a high DEC, which means simply that I'm the type of person that likes to make decisions quickly, get to the point. If someone's talking to me and just going on and on and on in my head, I'm going, come on, get to the point already. All right. But that little bitty C that I have wants structure and organization. So those are things are at odds, which means as I look at things, I'm always like wanting to make a decision quickly, but in my internal brain, I'm like, well, but I need to have this first. I need to have that first. So if I would have just trust my gut more, which I would tell you that when I do, I tend to have the better luck of things, that I would be much further along with things. The other thing is don't be shy about things that are coming your way. I mentioned
Mm,
to you earlier that I fought that battle of the egos understanding of now having the certain brands that I was working with versus the ones that I thought I needed to have. I probably spent a good 5 years fighting that battle where I could have been further along in what I'm doing today now had I just accepted what had come my way, right? And so what I mean by that is sometimes look at it through the lens of like, what's the bigger picture here? Sometimes we get stuck in the weeds and we have to kind of look up over the fence, right? That analogy, and kind of see what's out there and understand why things are happening the way they are and embrace that. You know,
Yeah.
it's so easy for us sometimes to get so passionate and stuck in a way of something because that's what we've known and that's what we think we want in this world. But then there's signals and signs and things happening all around us all the time that are leading us in a different path, and we have to be open to that. So those are the two things I would tell Ben younger to be okay with because you would be much better off that way.
Love it. Ben,
Yeah.
how can listeners and viewers find out more about you online and get connected with you?
Sure. So, I mean, the agency is rocketmedia.com. That's a pretty easy one where if you wanted to look more about that. But I will tell you, in this AI quest that I'm on, I've built my own personal website called bensaibrain.com. And what I'm doing with that particular site is cataloging my experiments. So they're not just all business experiments. I do a lot of things with my family. I've got a large family. I have 9 children, so we've got lots of things going on in my house. And we're using AI. I'm using AI to experiment on different things with them. For example, I mentioned this story. I'll be brief. We built a treehouse over spring break, and we used AI to design it, and also used AI to help educate the kids on how to do certain things, like how do you measure and cut and this and that. And so it was quite fun, and I documented that along with other journeys throughout my family and my business. And that's a way I'm sharing and educating others is real life examples and utilizing technology to make that happen. And there's a lot of mistakes, and I'm sharing those too, which are fun sometimes.
Yeah.
But there's also some great examples of success of like, oh, that's how you could do that, or that's how I could use this technology for this or that. I'm mostly just doing it for myself and I'm documenting it so I can learn from my own knowledge. But I think people enjoy that. And I've been trying to make that a way to help share these experiences with others as we kind of journey in this together or through life.
Yeah, love it. Well,
Yeah.
we'll include those links in the show notes. And
Great.
yeah, your AI. Um, I don't know if that's something you're turning into a business model, but you're
It
definitely
is. Yeah.
okay. You're definitely positioning yourself as the thought leader in that space. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
So Digital Igniter is the company that we're getting ready to start. That's
got it.
basically me utilizing this knowledge to help others in this business space to really from a marketing lens, but also from an operational perspective. So there's some happenings there, and I think that's a cool path. Not to distract from my rocket media world, but sometimes things happen. You have to use that gut and follow those intuitions, right? And that's
Yep.
what this is about. Yeah.
Yeah. Love it. Well, Ben, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your authority X factor with
Thanks
us.
for having me, Kelly. Appreciate it. Good to see you again.
Thanks for watching. My book, Unlocking Your Authority X Factor, is now available on Amazon. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. See you next week.